All right, guys, welcome to another episode of the Leads to Deals podcast, where we talk about everything from leads to deals and everything we talk about leads to deals. I am super stoked to invite somebody I consider one of my friends now that I met through this industry, a rock star sales professional, a closer amongst closers, Mr. Rich Wonders. You may know him as Novation King online. He's the CEO of Rainmaker Acquisitions, an all-around stud of a sales professional. Rich, brother, thank you for coming on the show today.
My guy, Big Dog, I appreciate you, man. It's an honor, man. Definitely have a lot of respect for what you do, man. So,
dude, I appreciate it. Our journey starts literally in the trenches together, like how I know you, how I met you. I'll tell my version of it very briefly. You tell me how you remember it, but you were aligned with an affiliate office that I sent leads to. And so for the guys and gals who are watching the show, I'm in Colombia, South America. I got a large marketing company. I send leads to like sales offices. And dude, I was sending leads to this guy in Tennessee. And there was one stud that we just kept on interacting with, that kept on closing our deals, that was hyping us back up through the system. And it was you. And I know you from closing our leads first. Like I hadn't heard your name until I saw you locking them up. So that's kind of how I remember. What do you remember?
yeah. And I was just so taken aback because I've dealt with a lot of different lead gen companies, and just the culture and the fire and the passion and the urgency and everything. I was like, dude, who the hell is this guy? Like, who are these people, right? Like, why isn't every company ran this way? And I was blown away too. So the feeling was mutual.
Well, dude, I remember thinking too, and then I'm not picking on anybody at all, but I remember thinking like once you were no longer with those guys, I felt that you were a cornerstone or linchpin. And so I think that you had, and maybe you still work with them, I don't know, but at least you weren't in our Slack channels anymore. And I remember thinking, damn, they just lost a real one. And so for a lot of guys in this space, the CEOs, they've never been direct to seller. Like they built a company off of buying MLS, and it's a different animal. Like you gotta have your stuff together to be out there in the trenches like yourself. And so when you left, I said, damn, but we kept in touch, and that's how we ended up going to today.
Absolutely, man.
So you're in Arizona, right? Like it's hot as hell. One of the toughest markets in the REI space. What do you do out there currently right now in the REI space? Kind of give us a little heads up there, and then we're going to talk about your sales story.
Sure. So I actually wholesale nationwide. So I do some deals in Arizona, but my deals are scattered all over the place. And all my deals are actually sent to me from other wholesalers right now. So I've been doing that for probably about a year and a half. And it's not a duplicatable model what I do, but it works for my lifestyle and what I'm doing. And I lead a community, 380 people, big wholesalers around the country, where we teach acquisitions, novations, how to do it ethically, effectively, and communication, and just being resourceful. And it's something I really enjoy. You know what I mean? Because wholesale can be a lonely business. So having like a network around you of strong people to share information with is a total hack.
Having that support system, and I'm familiar because we have mutual, I call them affiliates or clients. They're either students or community members for you, but that's part of that Rainmakers group. Is that the community, or does it have another name?
Yeah. So it's the Rainmaker Novation community. So it's a course, and it's also a group where we do live trainings. And some of your affiliates are some of my best JV partners. You know what I mean? Like when they hit me up, I know it's already coming in hot, and we put priority to those leads. Absolutely.
And it's cool helping people like this too, man. And so a lot of them are younger than us. Like we both know these guys that we're talking about. They're younger than us. They're starting out on their sales journey, and we're their mentors, and also the reason why they're able to be not successful, but why they, like you said, they have a resource to rely upon. And so when you were first starting out, like for you, did you start in the Arizona REI space? Is that where you cut your teeth, or did you cut your teeth in another market?
Yeah. So in real estate, when I first started out, I was working for Sean Terry, and we were doing all local, where we were driving to the houses, getting the appointment set, driving there, going belly to belly, and sitting down at the kitchen table with a pen and locking up deals right there on the spot. I did that for about a year, and then we switched to a nationwide 100% virtual model after that. And I did that for another year when I was working for Sean.
So I love virtual, but one thing I can tell you, no matter what, Arizona, Nevada, California, if you can do it there, you can pretty much do it anywhere in the nation. It doesn't get tougher in regards to seller education, price points, like the word I buy and these wholesalers. It's the mecca of it all is in Arizona. And so it makes sense to me, a guy like you who is at the elite of the elite, when you were getting in, you started in one of the toughest markets. Did you know, were you blind to the fact that you were in one of the toughest markets when you first started? Or did you kind of start to appreciate that once you went into softer markets?
So it's weird because I came from a background of selling Kirby vacuums door to door
Oh, baby. All right.
for 10 years. And I was a top salesman the whole time, but there's a ceiling with that, right? And so I knew that Arizona was tough because when we'd go out to smaller places, like we travel with that and go to New Mexico and smaller cities, it's just a different type of individual that you're dealing with. It's a slower pace, less less sales resistance. Yeah. So I knew Phoenix was tough just from those days, but yeah, I mean, things are tough for a reason. Those are the best markets. And with it being tough, if you can rise above that, there's less competition too, because a lot of people are afraid to go for those tougher deals.
So I have a couple of industries I love the most. And, I came from the timeshare industry. And so that's where I cut my teeth. That's my entire background when I was 20 years old, actually 23 years ago, pretty much right about now, the month of December is when I got my very first real sales job. And it was slinging timeshare. And one of the things back then, 23 years ago, this is pre-internet. This is a long time ago. And they used to love recruiting Xerox sales guys and Kirby vacuum guys. And so in other words, the elite of the elite, they didn't necessarily want to poach people from other timeshare tracks because they would have bad habits or they wouldn't have some of the exact sales skills. They loved Kirby vacuum guys, and then they loved the Xerox guys. And before I ever got in sales, I installed security alarms in homes. I was like an ADT guy. Like literally, I didn't even believe in myself enough to do the sales side of it. I was installing the wires. And I remember being in this lady's house in Williamsburg, Virginia, and a guy comes in for his Kirby presentation. And I said, damn, how do you turn a vacuum into something emotional and sexy? Like, it blew my mind how this guy was able, and what he did to this lady's carpet before cleaning it again. Like, it was crazy. So walk us through what it's like to be a Kirby vacuum sales guy and how you turn something as unsexy, as robotic as a vacuum into an emotional sale.
So it is somewhat of the gauntlet. And one thing that's similar with timeshare and Kirby is normally you have one shot. If you're not converting that client while they're in front of you, the chance of ever converting them is as close to zero as you can possibly get. So it's a high pressure situation where someone's not coming into that interested at all normally, right? They want whatever freebie that you're dangling in front of them. Okay, it's something that's 10 times more expensive than what they're initially thinking. Like the Kirby, 10 years ago, we sold it for $2,800. So you can imagine it's 10 times more expensive than what you think an expensive vacuum is. But it taught me so much because the guy I worked for, it was a complete blessing because I got the job out of pure desperation at the lowest point in my life. I needed a job. I went from sleeping on the floor in the studio I was working at to sleeping on my friend's floor. And they hired, I called one ad, they hired me that day, and I learned so much because this guy, he was doing several $1 million a year selling these vacuums, and he'd been doing this for 20 years. So he was my first mentor that had some serious success. He was the most successful person I had that close contact with, and he was really big on the self-development, the mindset, and really pouring into, and he led his team like a freaking army. Like, honestly, there's a lot of parallels that I see just from the limited thing that I've seen with you, with how he ran things. And that's something that just showed me this whole different way of thinking and acting and how to motivate people to do things that they don't want to do on the sales side, how to compel people to make decisions that benefit them on the communication side with the Kirby. The thing was that the vacuum was badass. It was very cool, right? So it was a good product, but the sales process was still extremely challenging. This was very expensive, and we had sales resistance the whole time. So it was the biggest blessing. Like if I had not have done that for so long, I definitely would have been who I am today. And I'm glad I found real estate because that's, the vehicle that you're in has a huge impact on the ceiling and where you can go. And
it's funny when I consider you like my peer, right? And so I look at you and I hear you talk, and we say the same things. We just use a little bit different verbiage. And so like you talk about the vehicle, I call it the mousetrap. And what it is, it's like which mousetrap is going to produce more revenue based on these efforts. But the reality is the fundamentals that you learned at Kirby are true fundamentals. They can be applied for anything, whether you're selling solar, whether you're selling roofing, whether you're selling medical devices. It's the fundamentals of the sales process that were ingrained into you back then, coupled with you have to, for any good salesperson, destroy their limiting beliefs. Because if you believe you will be a mediocre salesperson, or if you don't understand that this is just a foundation to grow to that next level, like you'll literally die, like you get eaten. There's a lot of guys who walked around with a lot of Kirby's in their cars that never made it because they didn't believe in themselves. They didn't have that sale closed before they got to that front door and walked in. And so a guy like you, like I see it, like you said, you had a good mentor and he talked about helping you believe in yourself more and learning these tactics. And so he was a big does he know what you are up to now by any chance? Have you ever connected with him again?
Yeah, so I mentioned him in a few podcasts a few times, and he came across one of them on Facebook and reached out to me. It's funny because when I left there, he cussed me out. He told me I was going to fail. I'll never be successful because I was his best guy for a long time.
Yeah.
And he got the impression that I thought I outgrew it and took offense to it. But no, he's cool as hell. Like I'd love to have a beer with him sometime and shoot the shit now that, a good amount of time has passed. But I've got nothing but respect for the guy. And listen, anyone that's helped me along the way, I thank them. And maybe there was times at the moment where I was upset with them or felt like it wasn't fair, but life's not fair. And that's what makes you strong.
I literally had this talk with somebody yesterday, my guys. I had like 14 people come into my office yesterday, and they were talking about some type of policy that I've done that actually makes a certain section of our office the job harder. And so because this certain cohort of my office now's job is harder, they wanted to make it softer on this other side. And it actually makes sense. It's like, hey, they work less, so we should lower their commission pool. I said, no. So I'm not going to allow a culture where every time something gets harder, we therefore must make it easier on this other side. And it's that tough love that helps me to be able to grow these guys because we do pour into them. But I will, probably how you feel as well now too, I will never be upset if somebody leaves me to go and better themselves. Under no circumstances, like, dude, I want you guys to learn I can only be as good as me. They get to learn everything from me, add themselves on top, so they should take it to the next level.
Absolutely. And I'm a firm believer, right, that a leader's vision should be big enough where the people in their organization can get everything that they want out of life and be inside of that vision, right? And if people are leaving, it just means that they feel like their vision doesn't fit in there. And for some people, it just may be a directional thing. But as a leader, you always want to think as big as possible so that you can attract top talent that's also thinking big. Which I know you don't have any issues with thinking big, man. I've seen your office, so.
No, I don't. I think it's executing on the vision. You know what I mean? Like my thinking is bigger than what our office is currently, and so I'm a big thing on even holding myself accountable. Like, how do we really, really grow to the next level? I want kids to really be inspired because your story is something that I've followed. I've done research on you as well too. Like, I want to get to know my guest even more than I've been able to. It seems like you've made a lot of pivots in your life too, from back then to now, even personal with fitness and so forth. And so as you grew, when you left the Kirby, did you go directly into real estate? Like, were you having a bunch of transitions in your life, or did all this good stuff just start happening recently?
I mean, there's been a lot of different chapters, right? And so I left Kirby. I did go right into working for Sean Terry. But there was about a 6-7 month period where I was still doing Kirby and I was just researching wholesale on YouTube because I had a baby on the way. I didn't have any money saved up. And I knew once I jumped off this boat, I couldn't fall in the water. I had to make sure I was close enough to the dock because I had very little margin for error. And I already knew that my connection was going to be burned once I left there. I knew I was never going to come back because I already did that once. I opened up my own office in Kirby, ran that for 2 years, and it ended up fizzling out because I wasn't passionate about it, right? And I had to go back and beg for my job. And I was like, look, I'm not doing this again. I can't travel 2-3 weeks out of a month with my baby on the way. I'm going to be an absentee father, vacuum salesman. I'm like, I know God did not create me to be a Kirby vacuum salesman for the next 20 years. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I mean, there's been lots of levels. I mean, when I left Sean Terry's and I had my first $45,000 check, I mean, at the time I thought I was rich. I never touched that amount of money. Right. Amen. So there's been many times where I've thought I've made it, thought it was over too. There's been many times where I wanted to quit. Things were hard when I first started wholesaling. Like Amen. Things were not how I expected it to be. I thought I was going to get in that office. Me and Sean were going to be buddy. He'd be over my shoulder the whole time, coaching me and everything. It's like, look, that's not how this works, right? Like, this is a business. He has his own thing going on, and I had everything I need, all the ingredients to be successful, but it was up to me to put it together. And the blessing of being dead broke, being desperate, being so terrified of failing, letting down my family, it allowed me to laser focus and become completely obsessed with studying the materials, copying it without question. I cut out all the BS from my life that I was doing in Kirby, just trying to maintain and feel okay, right? It was like, look, this is laser focus. If I fail at this, I'm going to make sure it's not because of a lack of effort or because of a lack of on my part, right? I was like, burn the ships. We're going all in. We're either going to make it or we're going to go out in flames. And it ended up being the perfect thing for me because you really have to have that mentality in order to win in this game. Like, there's a high threshold of BS that you have to get over before you start seeing results. So
I just got a new dog and I named him Ali for Muhammad Ali. And one of the things Ali's got is one of his most powerful whatever speeches, and he says, I'm gonna show you how great I am. And I always think about like that for me is me talking to myself. Like, I have to show myself how great I am because it's very easy. And you talked about that a second. There were so many words hidden behind those words about how you had to self-grow and you had to kind of separate yourself. And a lot of it's separating yourself from your bad things that are going on in your life, whether it be hanging out with the wrong crew, whether it be drinking, whether it be overspending, whether it be drugs, whatever it is. It's like, hey, listen, at some point you get your teeth kicked in and you're like, oh shit. Like, I literally, when I would sell timeshare, like, you could do anything you wanted between clients. You could smoke, you could drink the night before, you could come in hungover, but damn if it didn't always affect it. And I couldn't tell you my first 2 or 3 years in professional sales, how many $40, $50, $100,000 I was losing a year because of bad personal habits. And it wasn't until I was so fed up with hanging up those bad vices and being able to control all that mindset that I was able to actually take my sales career to that next level. It sounds like you may have had some of that as well too.
Absolutely. And I think the thing is I didn't have a big enough goal where I wanted to just laser focus on it before. I was just maintaining, comfortable, drifting through life. And there was a long period where that was happening. And once I finally felt like I had a worthy mission where I was like, hey, if I can really master this, I can completely transform my family's trajectory, right? And it became serious where it was like, now focusing on this stuff was much more important than trying to maintain, have fun, relax, any of that. I felt the real pressure where I was like, I need to make this happen. So
when you made the transition from face-to-face to Sean Terry's office, from doing the curb, did you find that this sale was a lot more aggressive than this one? Did they flow well? Did you kind of have to did you struggle at all in that transition from that face-to-face or at any point from face-to-face to virtual, making that shift?
So the reason that I sought out Sean Terry was his sales process was so similar to how I sold Kirby's. Because the first year we were belly to belly in their house. And the way he talked about walking through the house and commenting on their personal items and opening up rapport and sitting down at the table. And his whole style resonated with what I already knew worked. And I sold Kirby's 9 years, 6 days a week, 10 to 12 hours a day. I was immersed, and I had gotten so good at reading expressions, reading between the lines, all those things. And I saw his thing because I originally found wholesale from one of my buddies, seen him travel, and I asked him what he was doing. So he was taking all these crazy vacations. I'm like, dude, what's going on? He's like, I'm wholesaling houses. And that's what made me dive into the rabbit hole, because I was basically looking for the real estate version of the guy I was working for in wholesale. And Sean Terry happened to be in Phoenix, and so was I. I was like, praise the Lord. This is the guy. He's got the YouTube views. He's got the respect. I'm like, I need to find him and figure out what I need to do to get my foot in the door with what he has going on. And I hit him up on Instagram, and it took some persistence. It took some persuasion, but I gave him my pitch on what I was about, what I felt like I could do for the company, my attitude, how I'm coachable. I'm willing to work for free if necessary. Whatever it takes. And eventually I got my foot in the door with an interview, and then I got another interview. Then I got hired, and about 2 months later, I was one of the sales managers running the show. You know what I mean? So
it's interesting you say that it was such a similar model, because I would wager if I had to put one as being harder than the other, and I don't know if that's the most appropriate word, or maybe where more skill set is needed than the other, because I think sales, it is what it is. But I would think that the vacuum cleaner, like, there had to have been an air of like, oh, this is smoother, this is a little bit easier, if you will. Then did you feel a relief leaving that industry and going to where people actually want you in their house?
So part of it was easier, right? Because the people were open to the conversation. But part of it was harder too, because with the Kirby, I had a physical product. We pulled disgusting stuff out of people's house, and I had physical evidence. And with this, it was all hypothetical, visual. There wasn't like a physical thing going on. It was more a psychological battle to get their expectations aligned with where I needed them to be to make the deal work.
Yes.
So it was a trade-off. I mean, they both have their own challenges, but I think there's more parallels and similarities than there are differences. Like, very, very similar dynamic of knowing how hard to push and then knowing when to back off so you don't push them over the line, and circling back around and being persistent. But the thing was, just like in Kirby, like when I went in Sean's, like, I blew everybody's mind there, because in Kirby, I was really good at not getting kicked out, and I would stay until it was either burnt to the ground and there was a zero opportunity, or we're signing paperwork and doing the deal. And I was so desperate too. When I started, I had no money. My bills were coming. I had a small amount that was my salary for like the first 2 months that, at least we'd be eating, but I probably wouldn't be paying my bills. So I was so on fire that it was a total blessing, honestly. I'm glad I started that way and not with some backup money, because I probably wouldn't have the same sense of urgency at that time, just with my mindset. It wasn't as developed. I hadn't overcome as much adversity as I have at this point. So
I was just saying this a little while ago to the team. I wish I could. So again, I'm in Colombia, South America, and they don't have the concept of independent contractors or commission only. It's just not that type of a country. And so, but when I was 20 years old, so 23 years ago this year, was the last time in my life I've gotten a salary. And so everything else has been commission only, or the distributions, if you will. And but that was the best thing to happen to me. Like you just said, it's like you didn't have a safety net, and that your back's against the wall. And there was many times where I hit up Scott, or I hit up these other type of financial places. Like, I needed payday loans. I needed to struggle to get through it. But that pain is ultimately what led me to be able to focus in where I had to focus, learn these sales skills, and be able to grow them to that next level. And so I see a guy like you. I know that you also know that Kirby is filled, the car dealership is filled, timeshare tracks are filled with guys and gals who don't even know about the REI space, who have way more sales skills than the bulk of people who are in the REI space. And so if nothing but this podcast reaches a couple of ears of rock star salespeople in other verticals, this is where you should go. You don't have to, like you just said, 6 days a week, 12 hours a day. You can do this here, but you can be CEO of yourself. And that's why I love this industry, because it's very fragmented and very few people have the sales experience that guys like you have.
Oh, absolutely. My best hire was a guy that was in service at a car dealership, and where people would bring in their car, and then he was so well trained and so disciplined, because like car dealership people are killer at this. There's quite a few people that come from the car sales field that get into real estate. And I think as the economy changes too, there's gonna be a lot of displacement, and a lot of people, their jobs are either going to get replaced by automation or one person using more powerful tools. I think we're going to see too, especially if people are losing their jobs and potentially not able to keep up with their houses. There's going to be a flood of people coming into this space, and I mean, it's a crazy vertical. Like this is going to be the last thing to go to the robot overlords, right? Because you need a human touch with this to be able to really effectively do this.
Yeah, and my teams ask me a lot. They say, hey, listen, how is AI affecting us? And so right now, what it's doing, it's helping us make better data decisions. It's helping us be able to analyze metrics a lot better. But being as fluid as you can be, the nuances of the sales cycle, understanding human psychology, we got a while before this type of architecture or verbiage to get somebody to do the desired action will be replaced. For you didn't start out in Novation, right? You
Correct. We were just doing wholesale, traditional wholesale, off market, cash only, as is.
So I'm sure you said it 1,000 times, but where did you hear the first time you heard the word Novation? Like, how do you become the Kirby guy to working for Sean Terry to doing a couple of wholesale deals and now the Novation King?
So when I left Sean Terry, I went and struck out on my own. I started my own PPC campaigns, but the problem was my maturity wasn't at the level to run my own business. And the fact of the matter was, I worked harder trying to impress Sean than I worked trying to impress myself. And that was the same problem I had with Kirby. And 8 months, I got some deals done. I went on vacation, got a bigger rental house, filled it with furniture, did my thing and took my foot off the gas. And my boy, Brandon Simmons, who also worked with Sean, I told him I was getting down to maybe $10,000, $15,000. I'm like, I can't get back down to 3 again. Like, I need to go work for someone. And I interviewed with some people, top wholesalers in Arizona. I ended up going with Corey Geary because he was running PPC. Yeah. And I found out he was doing Novations. And I'd never heard of the concept. And I was like, this sounds pretty amazing. Like, if this is legit, I was skeptical. I was like, if this was a real legal thing, why would not every single person do this? This makes no sense. Like, there's got to be a catch, right? And that's where I learned it from. He learned it from a mastermind. Now, the mechanics of it have completely changed from what I was originally taught. And then I've developed my own sales pitch around it too. That is, very compelling and very effective, where I'm not presenting it as like a second option. I present it as the perfect solution. And when I left, I was with Corey for about 9 months. And when I left, he had been playing all my calls in his mastermind. He had a mastermind at the time, Novation Nation. And when I left, a bunch of his mastermind clients started hitting me up. And that's how I actually came across the gentleman you were talking about in Tennessee and my first clients that I started working with. And they just started sending me leads. Then it went on to me coaching their people. And then that just kind of snowballed into more JV deals. And that's how the Novation King was born, if you will.
Yeah, I think the moniker is fitting, right? Like, you're the man in this space. You're the guy that people think of. And I think the reason why I appreciate you so much in this space is you're the most transparent guy, if not between wholesaling or creative, because you put it all online. And so when you're out there and you're literally pitching a Novation deal, what I noticed that you don't do is we can't all have like rock star pitches 100% of the time. Sometimes customers throw you a curveball. There's good and bad, and there's great calls. And it's like, dude, you put it all out there. And that real, authentic sales struggle and wins, it means a lot to guys like me. Number one, because I can learn better that way. But one of the things that I love the most, and I was thinking about this before we got online today, is I said, man, you know what? You do a great job of also following up with people as to what was the result of that call. And so for you, were you hesitant in the beginning about putting the whole entire secret sauce out there? Were you hesitant about, oh, people are going to say in the comments, oh, you should have said this, you should have said that? Did you have that kind of fear or concerns in the beginning, and how'd you overcome it?
I mean, yes, but the thing is like, I had researched a lot, the people that I look up to, and my thought was, okay, I have to just put it all out there for anyone to even care about anything that I have going on. And I'm like, there's going to be, most people aren't going to care. Some people are going to dislike me, and then some people are going to like me. And I just kept collecting the people that liked me and ignoring the rest and just moving forward. But
what a great concept. Exactly. Collect the people that like you and ignore the rest.
Yeah. And that was the thing. And like, so from leaving Corey's, I was already in a JV model from all the people that had, given me stuff. So it was a natural progression to continue broadcasting all that. Because in my mind, I'm like, look, I'm marketing. This is the social media is my CRM. My clients are going to come to me, and I have to. And my thing was, okay, what's the thing I can do that people can't copy? My phone skills. I'm like, I have all this data set of skills from Kirby, from working for Sean, from working for Corey. I'm like, because like I had people that legitimately, even when I was working for Corey, saying, dude, I've never heard anyone on the phone like you. And these were high level people that I looked up to. And I took that as a compliment. I'm like, look, maybe maybe God put me through this 10 years of hell selling these vacuums to give me the power to really, share this opportunity with other people and, grow my own business. And that's what I felt was look, first off, I needed it. I needed the leads coming in and everything. So it was out of necessity. But then now as time has gone, it's also become part of my purpose is try to share these shortcuts so that, because I love, like when I see my people win, where they get these big checks and it changes their entire life, their whole family, everything. Like I get more excited about my JV partners winning than it is for me getting the deal. You know what I mean? So
for me, I've only been in your guys' vertical for 3.5, almost 4 years now. And so I've seen them come and go. And one of the things that irritated me right out of the gates was the very first kind of gurus that I saw in the space, they were pitching the 7-minute offer. Like, hey, listen, follow us and we're going to be able to pitch you on 7 minutes, 7 minutes, 7 minutes. And it's like, bro, it takes significantly more than that. You're lying to your people. It takes time to take homes is how we always say over here. And so I would watch these guys also do closing, or they would like live record what you're doing. But what they would always stop at is, okay, yeah, that offer sounds good. They would never send them a contract on the phone. They would never walk them through the agreement on the phone. I literally watched one of your videos this morning where you're reading the agreement with them, where you're getting the signature. And more importantly, they would never talk about the disposition process. So what they would do is they would tell their people online, hey, we just locked up 3 deals today on live. I'm like, no, you got 3 mediocre maybes. That's not a deal. And those guys weeded themselves out. They're gone because in their heads, they really thought that that was a deal, but that doesn't go to the bank. And so watching you go through the entire process, the goods and the bads, dude, I salute you for that.
Thank you, brother. And that's my hope, is to show people the entire spectrum, because I think that's why a lot of people fail as well, is the marketing is like, hey, you don't need any money. It's not that hard. All you got to do is just find someone that wants to sell their house, the crappy house, and then you just connect it with the buyer. And that's why people fail, because they're like, dude, all this stuff is going wrong. This is difficult. So I try to set realistic expectations so you can say, hey, look, this is going to be hard as hell. But if you get great at it, you will change your life. And you have to have that expectation going in that it's going to be very difficult.
Something else I see you dealing with, it's almost like you're the cleaner upper. Like you're coming into ugly deals. People are calling on, it's like my JV program. Candidly, most people never reach out to me for a JV unless it's a kind of shitty deal. And they're like, hey, I couldn't move it. I couldn't do anything with it. And I've watched some of these deals that you've gone through. And it's like, oh man, there's a memorandum already filed by another wholesaler. This wholesaler promised them X, Y, Z. So can you share with us a couple of the stories that you've had to go in and try to fix some stuff?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So here's one we did recently. This one closed last month, and it was a property in Hampton, Georgia.
Okay.
A wholesaler hit me up. Great dude. He had never even done a wholesale deal, much less a novation. But he had this deal locked up, and he had found a buyer off market that had a loan. He had been reaching out to realtors. One of the realtors had a pocket buyer, and he hit me up. He's like, "Hey, look, I've got this novation deal. It's a huge spread. I just need someone to walk me through." So we worked out like a split on it. It's like, "Yeah, I got you, no problem." Well, come to find out, this buyer backed out. So we started that whole process. 2 weeks later, buyer backed out. This lady's house was in foreclosure, and the auction was coming up. We had to stop the auction. We ended up going through 3 different buyers, and we finally got it under contract. They backed out. We ended up putting it on the market, and finally on the 4th buyer, we were able to get it closed, and we made $105,000. And this was not only his first wholesale deal, his first novation deal. And this guy was working a 9 to 5. That was life-changing money for him. You know what I mean? But, oh my gosh.
Isn't it so funny that, and I say this with love, but you can say the words $105,000 and it roll right off of the tongues. And it's like, and I just nod my head. But the reality is it's $105,000. Like, that's so much money. And this kid was able to have that as his top line on his very first deal, but he couldn't have gotten it across the finish line without a guy like you. Like that's when you close your eyes that night when that wire finally hit, like, it's got to make you feel excellent, man. Like, dude, you changed this kid's trajectory.
It is so awesome, man. And like, even just living in downtown Phoenix, when I'm walking down the street, I get stopped like quite often. People saying, "Hey, man, I watch your stuff online. You help me get a deal. I use your lines and everything." And like, I give away so much sauce for free because my thought is, okay, the people that really want to dive in and get the full blueprint, they're going to either do a JV deal with me or get in the community. But there's a huge spectrum of other people that are probably never going to be my customer that I can still help in some way. And maybe at some point we can do a deal together or something. But if not, I'm just creating goodwill and it costs me nothing. Yep. I have to market anyways. So I don't want to gatekeep that. And I feel now that I'm finally have stability and everything where, the deals, I'm not counting on the deals to cut, I've had good deal flow for a while now. Now it's more too about like building my purpose on this earth. Like, I don't just want to be some guy up in his crib, just nailing deals and making money and traveling with my family and everything. And like, hey, well, good luck to everybody else. I'm like, if I can share that and help good people that are willing to put in the work, empower them. It's like, look, you're not going to completely learn how to do deals from watching me. But if you're sharp and you have the drive, you could go on my free Instagram page and have everything you need for the most part to change your life and start getting deals done. So,
it's so funny. We just said a second ago, there's guys and gals out there at car lots selling solar, whatever, that need to hear your story and need to know this process to be inspired by it. But more importantly, there's guys out there, and maybe gals too, that are doing things that are felony time. Like, they're in the exact neighborhoods that I'm calling into, generating leads. They're driving by these houses every day. Shit, they might even be using them to store some stuff or do some shops out of. But these kids don't know that they don't have to risk the next 25 years of their life in jail to make $10,000 when that they'll just pick up the phone and go through the process. And those are the people I hope that we can reach, because like you said, they may not sign up for Rainmakers right away, but just for them to, the content that you put out there to just come across their radar, you'll never know the butterfly effect that you're having. Because there's so many, I didn't even know this existed till 4 years ago. I didn't know what wholesale was. I didn't know anything else. I've always had my other companies. That's where I made the bulk of my capital at. And I came into this, I was like, damn, if I would have known about this in high school, I couldn't even imagine how different my life would be. And so I love that you're pouring out there for people to find this stuff, because they can stop doing illegal things. This is good. You can sleep good at night. You can help your local community, and you can make monster rips and not have to look in your rearview mirror to make sure you're not getting pulled over.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's part of it too, because people see me, they're like, who's this white boy with long hair, all tatted up? Like, if he can do this, You can't be, I can do it too. And I love that too, because I do come from a colorful background. You know what I mean? All in my 20s and everything like that, pre-Kirby. So I think it's very important because a lot of people, I mean, let's face it, the system is rigged. Okay. You have to find some sort of crack or hack or some way to get around the normal path that they funnel the masses into. Going to college, getting a job. Look, there's a path, and we need people like that, right? But the reason a lot of people get into crime is they feel like that's the only way to have some sovereignty and not have to be just a ant in the anthill that is expendable and never can get ahead, and there's a ceiling. So that's the beauty of this, and that's why I harp so much on the ethics, because I'll be honest, there's a lot of hustlers in here, and they have that hustler drug dealer mentality where they just debo everybody and they lie because it's easier than actually figuring out a way to explain it. They price drop everybody every time, and they're just ruthless, and they're like a kingpin mentality. And I really fight against that because, one, it's not right. It's not going to be good karma, and it leads to all sorts of problems for the industry as a whole, those people as individuals, and the sellers. We have to love on the sellers and add value to them for this industry to continue. If this is a predatory type of situation or a parasitic thing where we're just milking everyone's grandma for every cent we can and not exchanging any actual value and lying and doing things behind their back, there's eventually going to be an outcry where they're going to be calling for wholesalers' heads. So I'm trying to push that off and avoid that as much as possible because it's not necessary. You don't have to lie to people. You just need to find the right people and understand what value they're actually looking for. They're looking for peace of mind, certainty, and a hands-off experience where they don't have to spend money or make decisions. And once you realize that, you can cater your pitch to that.
I think I'm glad that you said it because it is a bit of the elephant in the room regarding novations, as a lot of people just feel icky. Like I'll talk to my affiliates or people who are interested in my services, and before I take them on, I make sure they have multiple exit strategies. I'm like, do you wholesale? Yes, we wholesale. Do you take them down yourself? No, we don't. Do you create a finance? No, we don't. Do you novations? No, we don't. If they only do one thing, if they're only wholesale, let's just start there. If they're only wholesale, that's really not my ideal avatar because they need to have multiple exit strategies. Now I have guys who novate first, wholesale second. I love that. But a lot of guys, when I ask them, they say, no, novate. I just don't feel comfortable. I just don't feel this. And I know it's just an education about the process. But more importantly is they're not such a believer that they can convey it correctly. And so it is a segment, it is an exit strategy that is susceptible to people to cut corners in. It's a little bit harder to cut corners in wholesale than you can on the novation side. And so I know have you ever had to clean up somebody else's novation deal? Like, hey man, I pitched it all wrong. Now the customer's freaking out. And then they're asking you to JB and clean it up?
All the time. And
what's the common mistake that they're cutting corners or lying or omitting? Sometimes it's just lying by omission, but what is it the common mistake they make?
Representing themselves as the buyer and trying to bury the MLS stuff in the contract and thinking that, okay, they're being ethical because it's in the contract. Here's my perspective.
Sure.
You have to have the seller's heart in mind. There needs to be a clear understanding. You can't hide behind a contract for practical reasons and for ethical reasons. You have to set the expectations that, look, we're going to be selling to a third party. We're going to give you a hands-off experience. You don't have to fix anything, do anything. We're leveraging our expertise and our resources to deliver the result on a silver platter. And once you realize that's all they want, you don't have to lie to them. The reason people lie to them is they don't know how to give the value proposition of what the seller is looking for. So you have to set proper expectations, but you also have to have a compelling sales process because this is a more nuanced thing than saying, I'm going to buy your house.
Yes.
I'm going to buy your house is the shortcut. And then you try to do it all behind the scenes using a flat fee broker, another horrible mistake. And I've been down that road before. I've done quite a few deals with flat fee brokers. Highly, highly discourage anyone from doing that.
Yes.
And that's one thing where I save a lot of deals where they go the flat fee broker route. They're trying to put on a realtor hat and broker without a license. It's a boneheaded move and is very short-sighted. And the thing that breaks my heart too is I see people just getting into Novations that are preaching all these things where I know and even bragging about, hey, if they find out if it goes on the MLS, just tell them this, and leading people in this wrong direction. So that's one reason why I've been putting my foot down more, trying to protect the industry, protect the wholesalers, and protect the sellers. Because if someone's grandma, finds out that the house is being listed for 100,000 more than what someone promised them, that goes on the news, people are gonna freak out. It's horrible. It's a scam when they don't understand what's going on. It's not a fair exchange. So
yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I watched you kind of snap back a little bit online recently, and I feel the same way. And it's not that. It's just a matter of standing up for what's right. When I see guys out there in the lead gen space saying something that's incorrect, dude, I can't even control myself. I just immediately chirp because there is a difference between doing it the right way and understanding the fundamentals behind it, because we have a duty as somebody who has any level of following to make sure we're doing it the right way, pitching it the right way. Because like you said, it's about longevity. These guys and gals who are just coming in with that, they can't shake the hustler mentality. It's great to have a hustler cartel work ethic, but once you take it to the product side where there's nothing that matters other than the dollar, that's when you're going to end up burning the industry and then burning yourself and getting out of it. And so I want to focus on the lead side real quick. Everything we talk about leads to deals. I know right now your main lead source is really your communication skills, showing them, presenting them online. That's bringing in people into your community and JV deals. But for your guys who are bringing you deals, what are you saying like, hey, for the guys and gals out there that are thinking about this space, what are you seeing as being some of the most effective marketing channels? What are you recommending? Like, what is your favorite lead sources to work? Just walk me through like what you see on the lead gen side, because you ain't getting no deals without leads.
Yeah. So I think definitely lead generation is something to be outsourced. And I recommend this to every new wholesaler. For most wholesalers, I tell them, hey, look, if you don't have a budget to outsource lead gen, you're better off finding a active wholesaler that you can learn from and work for, because it's not worth it. I know people that have done it on their own with no money, but they always have a crazy story that goes along with it on how long it took them, all the suffering they had to do, and everything they had to overcome. So lead gen needs to be outsourced, because your highest and best use is talking to motivated sellers. And you're almost better off working a regular job and then outsourcing the lead gen than having no income and doing all the lead gen yourself and then hoping that it's all going to work out at the end. Sometimes it does work out and sometimes it doesn't. I've seen, some success stories, but normally there's a high amount of pain that goes into it. And now looking back, they understand like, hey, look, this is not a one-person job, and it's certainly not the highest and best use for the business owner. So yeah, cold calling is amazing. Outreach, PPC, big fan of. Social media marketing. I'll be honest, it all works. It all works because we're just searching out people that have problems to solve and want to sell a house. So I don't think necessarily one is better than the other per se. I think they all have their pluses and minuses. PPC, highest converting, but also the most expensive and the most fickle. The thing that can switch around and you can get burned real quick,
so fast. You have a website landing page, a cookie that breaks or something like that. It literally can be catastrophic until you catch it. I want to hit on something you just said, because it was a very powerful statement, and it talks about not having an ego without even saying it, which is going and working for somebody else. Going in and not being a slimy person, not being a scumbag, finding out how you can provide value. If I'm in any market, if I'm in Des Moines, Iowa, if I'm in Chicago, Illinois, I'm going to go type in how to sell my house fast. Everybody who's got a paid ad is somebody who needs a rock star sales guy. And you want to reach out to them. Don't click on that. Show them a little respect. Find the website, Google it on the other page, save them $75. Tell them you did that too. Say, I didn't click on your ad. But to be able to reach out to those types of guys and humble yourselves and come in there and be upfront, like, hey man, dude, I'm willing to give you a year or two of my life. I'm going to come in and master. I'm going to provide exceptional value to it. And when you don't burn that bridge, and we've had a couple of employees do this in our Orlando REI office, they end up bringing us deals. We end up being buyers for the deals. We partner on self-storage facilities, and we want to see them win. And I think that is a thing that most people should do, but a lot of people won't do because they have this ego of, well, I have a little bit of coin, not enough to really get myself off the ground, but I'd rather struggle over here than go master the art over here and then come back. So I love that advice for you.
Excellent. Yeah, you nailed it. And if you want to be great at anything, you have to be willing to at first be the fool and be the student. And I think that's very important. You know, you do have to humble yourself, because if you try to be the big guy from the very beginning, you're selling yourself short. You have to realize, like, look, if you can make millions of dollars a year doing this, do you think it's easy? Do you think that it's just something you're just going to figure out by watching YouTube videos? If that were the case, it wouldn't pay nothing. You know what I mean? So
here's what was crazy about the first time I got into your guys' industry. I went to the first mastermind. So I came from timeshare, which is ruthless, to timeshare exit, to selling leads to attorneys, like all like what I felt was very cutthroat, ruthless. I went to this first mastermind and I was like, and everybody's sharing all their tips and tricks. I'm like, I'm gonna destroy all these guys. Like, like I can't believe they're sharing so much of what's working. I literally came back. I was like, these guys are fools, idiots. Ha ha ha. I'm gonna destroy them all in the marketplace. And it took a little while to sit down, and I was just like, oh, actually, everybody's really cool. And there's so many deals out here that you don't need this like overly competitive. There's so many deals out here. You can do it from anywhere in the world, that it's a brotherhood. So just get your foot in the door, join the system. Everybody loves to share and wants to see you grow and win. At some point, you have to be careful who you're taking advice from, right? You know, there's a lot of bad advice out there as well, too. But I just couldn't believe how many guys like Scott Morris or Rich Wonders are actually out there that are willing to help, willing to sacrifice a little, and have great content available for free.
yeah, it's much more collaborative than other industries. I think one reason is because of the difficulty of it, where if you can't beat them, join them. And there's such an abundance of deals. It's like taking a cup of water out of the ocean. Like, it doesn't matter whether you do 100 deals or 1,000 deals. It makes no difference. We're competing from a virtually infinite pool. So,
and it's amazing the levels of success too. Like the big boys aren't on IG in front of their Lambos. They're actually flying in their jets. I happened to meet a guy this past Saturday at an event I was invited to, and he's got 16,000 doors, just himself. He's part of a family office as well too. And I'm just like, man, like I've never heard that number before. And it's so sexy. It's so beautiful. And he started with one door. He literally started with one door like every other person out there, and he's grown it to 16,000. So I love it. Real quick, I want to end on deals for people out there. Obviously, they can learn more about the Novation process through you. Do you suggest that is that like, I know we just talked about, hey, if you want to generate leads, you either need to outsource it or you need to go work for somebody until you can afford to outsource it. So that's the lead side. Deals, do you suggest that they master wholesaling first and then learn, like, do they need that baseline, or can somebody come in and be Novations first? How does that work for a newbie?
So the sales process that we use works for wholesale and Novation. And about 20% of my deals, we do sell off market, cash only. So if it makes sense to do it that way, we will. But the expectation is still set that we're reselling it to a third party and we're going to earn a fee from the buyer. So if you're brand new, you're going to have to figure out the lead gen end of your own on your own, right? Sure. My recommendation, hit up Scott with Lamasu. They're the best. There's no one even close. Like if you're going that route, that's going to be the way to go. And you're going to have a lot of support with it, right? But as far as like the sales process, you need a repeatable process, both for yourself and for your future people that are working with you, right? Obviously, I'm partial to my process. There's a big data set of, it working for both myself and other people, right? Because the thing is you can be a great salesperson, but if what you do is not easily duplicatable, you're always going to be a high paid employee of your own business, right? Yes. So, no, you don't need to master Novations first. And in fact, if you're, wholesale first. And if you try to master wholesale right now without doing Novations, there's a good chance you're not going to make it, because there's a lot less cash buyers. You have to get at a much higher discount. And these same deals that you're selling off market, you can be selling on market, earning more money and outsourcing the most difficult part of the process, which is the actual selling of the property. You're having local agents that are experts handling that for you. and we teach people how to, locate, motivate, and communicate with A player, high level agents. And that right there is a huge hack where you can scale your business without having a huge overhead, without having employees that you have to train on all these high level things. You can focus on lead gen and acquisitions. And then once you have a system on how to find the realtors in any market and motivate them to get the deal done, then that's pretty much outsourced and that's on autopilot, and you just make decisions, but they're doing the actual work. So
I'm probably going to end this close to what some might call a controversial topic. I'm going to tell you something my perspective is that I seen, and I want to get your feedback on this. So in the short period I've been here, I've been in the industry, I've been at like the highs of the REI market and then the hedge fund craze. And when the hedge fund craze, there was a lot of guys and gals out there, Rich, who only sold to hedge funds. Once they stopped buying a year ago now, a little bit over a year, but roughly a year ago, I watched the bulk of those guys just get decimated and go out of the industry. Some of the guys, though, that had been accustomed to only locking up retail deals were able to tread water long enough because of the Novations product. So my question is do you find that people with less sales acumen, like the same guys who are buying above wholesale pricing in the hedge fund, are able to survive in this product where otherwise if Novations didn't exist, like they just can't get a good enough discount, or they come in at it from a value add perspective? Do you see guys who really like only survived from hedge funds now pivoting into this? What is your perspective on that transition where guys went from hedge fund to Novations, and that's the only reason why they're alive today?
I mean, Novations have saved so many businesses, including my own. So yes, and it's not that it's easier, but it's that it's possible, right? Because out of all the leads you get, only a small percentage of them are going to be distressed houses with a distressed seller that you can get a big enough margin where you can now sell it to a flipper who's going to take on all this risk, put out all this capital, and then resell it to a retail market, on the retail market. With this opens up a huge spectrum of buyers. Now, it's not that doing Novations is easy, especially if you do it ethically, right? There are more moving parts than a traditional wholesale deal.
Yes.
I make no bones about that. I don't say, hey, look, this is super simple. However, it's so profitable, it's silly not to dive in and do it because wholesale's already hard. This is a little bit harder, but there's also different aspects that make it much easier too. And it's a more professional, polished experience for everybody because we're dealing with agents, we're dealing with buyers that are families, you know what I mean? So it's a more corporatized experience for everybody, and you have to handle it much more professionally, and which ultimately I think is good because a lot of wholesalers too, especially if they're coming from the corporate world, they feel like there is a little bit of shadiness, sleaziness, some sort of undercurrent of unprofessionalism, right? And kind of back alley type of mentality, where with this, when you do it the correct way, everything's above board, everybody's happy. It's a win for you, it's a win for the agent, it's a win for the seller, it's a win for the family, the title company, the lender. On each deal, we feed so many families, you know what I mean? Like with everybody involved, we help move the economy. And these are deals that wouldn't work another way. Because certain people, they just don't want to deal with the traditional experience. That's why they're seeking these cash offers out, but they're banging their head against the wall because everyone's coming in at 50 cents on the dollar. And Novations isn't a reason to give someone more money, but it's a reason why you can monetize houses that just aren't a match for wholesale. It's not an off-market property you're going to sell to a flipper or a landlord. It's meant for a family to live in there. So
yeah, I love that. I think you summarized it best in those two sentences: better profits, better experience. It's like it's a win-win for everybody involved. So I'm a big believer in it, and I want to say on camera and put it out there, like I have a number of affiliates who work directly with you and JV deals with you, and I stand behind the Novation King. I stand behind the process. I've seen it firsthand. I've watched my guys take deals in markets where, like that first deal, the first or second deal, those are so important to a successful campaign. They're spending a lot of money with me. And if that lead is a better fit for Novation and they don't have that mastered, don't go into it and fumble it. Don't go in there and try to explain it wrong. Don't let it blow out for you on the closing table when you already cashed that check mentally. That credit card's still coming, even if that deal blows out. Reach out to Rich. Go to Novation King at Novation King, correct? That's the IG?
Yeah, IG at Novation King. That's the best way to get a hold of me. That you get direct access. I don't have anyone run my page, and I give plenty of free advice every single day. It's just part of who I am. So there's no obligation. You don't have to do a deal or buy a course for me to help you. I'm just going to help you just because that's how I roll. Say you're Scott's buddy, and I'm going to give you priority. So massive respect for what you do, my man. Like, you have literally disrupted this industry and taken the professionalism, the passion, the drive to a whole nother level, dude. And the real ones, they recognize this, and you get massive respect from me for sure.
I appreciate it. My whole objective is just to change the definition of what a lead is in this industry. I think what most people call a lead, I call a data record. What most people call an opportunity is what I call a lead. And so, like, I want my leads to be so damn good that it's classified as an opportunity. I wanted to leave you one last thing. I don't know if you know this, but Google loves you. So Google has a generative artificial intelligence platform. It's experimental. I typed your name into it, and it says, Richard Wonders, also known as the Novation King, is an expert on novation agreements in real estate, has an Instagram account with X amount of thousands of followers, and then it explains. So Google's AI, like they spent all this money, he is known as an expert on novation agreements. When Google's artificial intelligence doesn't say, hey, he's knowledgeable, hey, he's X, he's in art. No, this guy is the expert. So kudos to you, man.
I had no idea. That's awesome, bro. You just made my day now.
Yeah, I would literally be showing that to my girl later. And by the way, you have a beautiful family, your wife and kids, man. Like, dude, I love following your journey. I love following your experience. Any support that I can ever provide for you, I'm here. And if people need to know more about, you need to know more about Novations. You need to follow Rich Wonders, dude. I appreciate it. I love your sales story. I'm here for you anytime you need me.
Thank you, brother. Dude, I'm going to find an excuse to get out to Columbia, too, and come out there and see your operation and shake hands and kick it with you, man. We'll have to do that soon.
Bring the family, man. It's a great family experience here. We'll set up a thing for them. I have 2 beautiful kids. So anyways, man, dude, I'd love to have you here, brother. Thank you again so much for your time.
Thank you, brother.
All right, you're welcome, bro.